Hi, this is Joseph Williams, son of John Williams, and you are watching the Nerf Herder Council.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. I am your host, JT. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. We are live at those two locations every other Wednesday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you are watching on YouTube, please don't forget to click that like button, click that subscribe button, and smash that notification bell so that you are notified every time we go live. We are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. And if you're looking for audio downloads of the show, the audio version, just Google Nerf Herder Council podcast. Without further ado, hey man, it is the 40th anniversary of not only Return to the Jedi tomorrow, but also the 40th anniversary of my Star Wars fandom with my favorite person on this planet, my co-host, my best buddy, AJ. What's up, man? This is going to be a great episode, man. Good to see you, dude. Like, is this like this is going to be fun? It's basically just us waxing poetic about Return to the Jedi because, let's face it, this is the first movie you and I saw in the theater together. Much less Star Wars. It was the first movie we saw together. So this movie is the start of our Star Wars fandom. I would consider it to be probably the start of us like being not just brothers but best friends. So this is kind of like a tentpole movie for us, I would say. So before we get to that though, you did bring a special guest onto the show. So why don't you introduce your friend there?
Yes, this is Terry. I brought him back from Batu. I was there last weekend. So, they kind of infested the planet by now. So I just wanted to, he might chime in from time to time.
Okay.
So,
all right.
He's a little noisy, but we'll try to keep him quiet.
There you go. See, Kale was wondering, our good buddy Kale McLeish, good to see you, man. He says, hang on, what's with the Porg? He's not the Porg, Kale, as you now know. He is Terry.
He's Terry.
So, Mimar's chiming in. She says, woo! Good to see you, Mimar. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in. So, yeah, man, I mean, let's just get right into it. Return of the Jedi for us is, I think it's one of those movies, that means a little bit more. Obviously, for you, you've said it many times, this is your favorite Star Wars movie. So there's that connection to it for us. But, again, this was the first time that you and I ever saw a movie together. I was 7 in 1983. You were 4. But it's also, we've told the story before on the show. I think it's a good place to start. I saw Star Wars when I was 4 in 1980. And I had the toys and the records and, you and I would get into it. I'd be like, man, Star Wars is so, you got into it because I was into it. And we just kind of grew to, be fans together in a way as little kids. And so when Jedi came out in 1983, it was like our first opportunity to actually experience this thing together. So I know for me, I distinctly remember, it's one of my earliest childhood memories. I was on the left, you were on the right. Mom and Dad were flanking us, obviously, at Strongsville Cinemas. Yep. And when we went to see it in the theater a couple weeks ago, when they re-released it, I purposely made sure that I was on the left, you were on the right. It's one of my cheesy things. So, and I remember looking up to my left, and I remember Jabba the Hutt's voice like echoing. It was very broad. It was like, oh my God, like this is like, that guy seems so evil to me. Like, and so I have all these memories, but I distinctly remember also looking over at you a few times to see if you were into it. Like, were you getting into it? Like I was like, oh shit, like boom, bang, like, the whole Batman thing. So I have vivid memories of that. Like, do you have any memories of doing that? Because again, I was 7, so you were only 4 though. So do you have memories of that first time we saw Star Wars together?
Just glimpses, really. I was very young.
Well played.
And it starts. No, I don't remember like the exact seating arrangement like you do, but I do remember what was funny is like I remember crying when Yoda died, which is kind of funny because I hadn't seen Empire. So I didn't know who Yoda was. I just knew that some little green Muppet was dying, and I'm like, that's so sad.
Are you still sad about Yoda passing away?
A little bit. Little bit. I
right.
maybe COVID hit Dagobah between the movies because like he seemed pretty spry in Empire, and then all of a sudden, like you revisit him. Luke is like, "Hey, I've been gone a couple weeks. How you doing?" He's like, "Old and weak have I become." Like, what? Since when? It's
What
only
the shit?
Tuesday.
Right.
But I remember being really sad about that. But I mostly remember the music. Especially the big swell when Luke just loses it to Vader in that fight in front of the Emperor, after Vader like intuits that he's got a sister, a sister. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, those are my two like prime moments that stand out to me about the movie. But you're right, Jabba the Hutt, indelible character. Like you never forget seeing that guy for the first time.
Right. So one of the things that always like is cool to me, again, is that it's your favorite movie, because I never like, and I didn't know this until a few years ago, which is odd because, I mean, again, we're talking about the 40th anniversary of not only Return of the Jedi, but like the start of our combined Star Wars fandom. So the fact that I didn't realize that till a few years ago is like, I don't know how that did not come up more in conversation between us. Like, conversation, like, I don't know, almost daily that we talk about Star Wars. But yeah, it's something that I did not know until way more recently than would be expected. So what about this movie, like for you, makes it your favorite?
Well, I mean, you never forget your first, right? So being my introduction to Star Wars, that alone has it for me. But I think I was the right age at the time for this movie. Like people make fun of it for being like the kiddiest of them all. And it kind of like hints at where George would go in the prequels with like the Jar Jar character, for example. But when you're 4 years old and you're watching a bunch of teddy bears whooping ass on stormtroopers and a giant slug gets his, it's what's not to love? I mean, it's a fun movie, and I feel like it really gets put down as the least of the three when it's got so much going for it. It's a fun movie from start to finish. And even as coming into it with no background, I was able to follow the story. I got into it, and I thought that it ended like on a big, huge climax, even though I didn't know why it was such a big deal. Like, it's just fun all the way throughout. Like, there's never a time. Can you remember a time when you've watched Return of the Jedi and like turned it off in the middle?
Good point. Yes.
Like,
no.
It just goes. It's a great movie. It's fun. Like, we love our newer Star Wars for all the connections and the lore and stuff, but it's a simpler time, right? When there were only 3 movies and half of the movie was just calling back to the other 2 anyway. So there wasn't a whole lot to know. You could just get into the story and enjoy it for what it was.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah, I think you hit on something excellent there. Like, the rewatchability of this movie is, I mean, it in the entire Star Wars catalog, I think it's really high up there. For me, this is in my top, if not 3, then if not 2, then definitely 3. I rewatch Jedi way more than almost anything. And it's just, and again, maybe it's the Revenge of the Sith thing for me, where that one, I have an emotional connection to because of you and I doing the midnight movie thing, as we've talked about. Maybe, Jedi is that, but, there's just something about it that is like, it's grandiose, and it's so much fun. And sometimes I wonder if it's like, it's kind of like A New Hope is fun, Empire's dark, Jedi gets back to more of like the fun aspect, but I wonder if like it's easier to rewatch because all the backstory, like part of it is you're like, yeah, the Empire's going down. The Empire's going down. Like, it's not just like watching A New Hope is like a singular movie. Mm-hmm. Watching Empire is just a brilliant experience, but Jedi brings the fun of A New Hope back into things, and the seriousness of Empire, and you get to see, everything, culminate exactly where you hope it culminates. It's like that ultimate happy ending, but it's got the best elements of Empire with like the fun and the best elements of A New Hope. So I think for me, that's why you can always rewatch this one. It's the one I always come back to the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, like I knew nothing of the movie going into it when I was 4 years old, and it stands on its own as one piece, but then when you do know the other movies, it just pays off that much more. So it works in itself, and it also services the entire trilogy and the saga to date at that point.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of another movie that really did it like that. I know Revenge of the Sith came close, but it wasn't as fun, of course, because everything had to go dark and form the Empire at the end. So and also it came out much later, so we were older, and it doesn't hit the same as when you're a kid,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Like Revenge of the Sith, it's funny that those are the two movies that like I have the most emotional connection to, that like Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi. And it is our connection. But yeah, they are two polar opposites. One ends on the ultimate high, the other one ends on the ultimate low. So, I mean, maybe that's it though. It's like there's a definite ending and a definite emotional climax, no matter what, whether it's good or it's bad, like there's that definite, ending to it, which is really cool. So, obviously, like we can wax poetic all night long about the movie, as I used the term earlier.
Right.
And I'm sorry to reuse it, but it's just one of my favorite terms. It's like, because no one ever says it. You got to read old timey books for that. But anyway, we have a very strong connection to the movie, but there's so much in this movie that I think doesn't get talked about. And, as I mentioned, within our last couple episodes, I listened to the George Lucas biography, and I watched, the Icons Unleashed documentary on Amazon Prime. So I've kind of been digging into this Star Wars rabbit hole, and I actually have some notes here about some stuff about the movie that was kind of interesting to me. And real quick before we get there, Cale brings up a good point. He says Jedi doesn't hit the same because even if they did nail it, it would be doing Jedi again. Like, wait a minute, Cale. Like, rephrase your point.
I think it means like other movies, other finales of trilogies.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Sorry, Cale. I thought I got it and I didn't, so that's my bad. But so yeah, there's some stuff that I kind of learned about the movie that I wanted to bring up and like kind of have like a new discussion about it. So
yeah, I don't know much about the trivia of this, so I'm glad you've got more insight.
Yeah, I don't know how much it's trivia, but I mean, obviously there's the Richard Marquand stuff. He was actually not the first choice as director. It was David Lynch. He said yes. Next day said no. So then they contacted Marquand. But, Richard Marquand was a TV director and stuff. And, there's a lot of stuff I learned about, he didn't have the best reputation on set and with the actors and stuff like that. Basically this, George Lucas was done with directing. So he wanted somebody that would direct for him, but he was also such a control freak that he wanted a yes man. So Richard Marquand was basically the predecessor to Rick McCallum, I guess, if you want to phrase it that way. So one of the earliest things that was kind of interesting to me was about Harrison Ford. Like, everybody knows that Harrison Ford's like, he's dead. He didn't sign a contract for all three movies like Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill did. So apparently, Harrison Ford's agent thought he got kind of screwed. So what happened was when they started going through the negotiations for the actors and stuff, they contacted Harrison Ford's agent. Well, his agent was out of town. Well, his agent's son was taking calls, and he was working for the agency, and basically negotiated the deal. And they said, "We got to have Harrison back. We got to have Harrison back." So they negotiated a deal. Cool. Well, the agent comes back from vacation and looks at the deal and goes, "Okay, what the fuck is this?" And then hits up Howard Kazanjian, and he's like, you screwed us. Like, this is not favorable to us at all. And Kazanjian said, "Actually, this is what we're paying all the stars. So take it or leave it." And come to find out, it actually was a lot of money. So they went, "Well, okay." So it was kind of one of those things where you would think it would be like, they'd be like, "No, I'm walking. I'm not getting enough money." But it turns out it was more than enough money. So we went, "Oh, well, okay, screw it. Like, we're doing it." So So, Kale says,
We're not just doing it for the money. We're doing it for
doing
a
it for a
shitload
shitload of money. So Kale says, wasn't the carbonite a stopgap thing in case Ford didn't decide to come back? That is the rumor. Yeah, he had not signed on. So supposedly they froze him and kind of were like, he wasn't dead, but maybe he was dead. Mm-hmm. So that was the thing. So yeah, they brought him back on a normal contract and whatnot. Another thing that I learned, they started pre-production. There was no script. It was just a bunch of drawings and shit.
Really?
And they're like, we're starting Return of the Jedi, go. But George Lucas hadn't had a script. So they're building spaceships and doing aliens and crap. And it was, they're spending money and they're just making stuff out of the blue. And eventually, again, Howard Kazanjian, he went to George Lucas like, look, dude, we got to have a script. Like, you can't just be blowing money and, throwing stuff out in the ether. Like, we've got to do this. So that's where the first...
I love that because, we always hear the complaints about the sequel trilogy in particular about being like, oh, there was no plan. And George always had a plan. And no, he didn't. He had a rough outline, but he was making it up as he went, too.
Right? Look, Mimar, no script, no problem.
No problem. Barely an inconvenience. Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, but it's funny because, like, apparently from the stuff that I've seen, like obviously A New Hope is its own animal. But, Empire was the same thing. Like, they thought they learned their lessons, but they didn't. They still went over budget. They still effed up on the script, like all these different things. And so apparently they were trying to fix it with Jedi, and they set the budget on Jedi at $30 million, which was the exact
time.
Yeah, but it was also the exact budget of Empire, but it's 3 years later, so they didn't take inflation into consideration. So that's, so there's that.
Which is crazy because if you look at the scope of the effects and everything they had to work on, that's not a lot of money.
Well,
especially,
yeah.
like you said, without adjusting for inflation.
Yeah. But, I mean, the cool thing is, though, like, they set this budget at $30 million, but from what I've read and from what I've seen, like, apparently they came in at 32.5. So for Jedi, they only went $2.5 million over, which is really good compared to the previous two movies, which is cool. Mm-hmm. So, like, goofy question here. So I've got a bunch of the stuff I want to bring up. Should I just? You want me to just go through it and bring up these like factoids we can bullshit about it, like, and we'll just kind of riff on it because.
We're doing.
Okay, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Well, now I've got this. Like, it's like trivia hour.
No, it's interesting you bring up the thing about the budget though. I didn't realize that they were kind of hamstrung a little bit. I mean, we know that basically as soon as the first movie was made, which George Lucas had to get funding for. After that, they were self-funded. Like, he didn't need to go to the studios to pay for these things. He had enough in his own pocket. Yeah. But he still put a limit on it. He's like, I'm not completely made of money here, guys. Yeah. But I wonder if that explains a little bit about, I mean, they say that they kind of wanted Kashyyyk in it, and that's how you ended up with the Redwood Forest as the setting of Endor. It's also really convenient that that's not too far away from San Francisco and Skywalker Ranch and Industrial Light and Magic and all that, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to Tunisia again if they don't have to.
Well, that's like, everybody knows about Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the novel, mm-hmm. Set around time of Star Wars. Well, I mean, this isn't Return of the Jedi related, but it kind of relates to what you were saying. Splinter of the Mind's Eye was actually written as the sequel to A New Hope, because Lucas thought that it was going to be unsuccessful when it was going over budget, over this, like, it was just an abysmal disaster. He had, written into his contract the rights to a sequel. And so he's like, I'm going to do a damn sequel. So he commissioned, I forget the author's name, but he commissioned the author to write that novel specifically as...
I know this one.
It's a 3-name thing, yeah. So go and Google it. But he specifically commissioned this guy.
Novelization for Force Awakens. That's why it's notable.
No, he didn't. Did he really?
I think so. Or
the same guy?
Thing.
It's
Alan Dean Foster.
He wrote the novelization of really.
Mm-hmm.
Force Awakens and Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Okay. Well, so Splinter of the Mind's Eye was supposed to be, it was specifically written so that it would be something to be a sequel to A New Hope. And the whole thing apparently is set on this one little foggy area in a planet, and it's really small, no bad. Like he had the author, Alan Dean Foster, had written in space battles, and George Lucas went, no, take that out, because he was like, this movie's going to fail. I can't afford to pay for special effects in a space battle. So Splinter of the Mind's Eye was supposed to be Empire Strikes Back, but on a really small scale because he couldn't afford, anything else. But he wanted to do a sequel to Star Wars. So, you're going back to your budget thing. Yeah, it's like he was always looking at the bottom line, even though, he made money hand over fist. It was like, it was crazy,
It's crazy to go back to those early years of Star Wars when now, like, Solo is the biggest bomb because it only made like $450 million.
Oh, that's bullshit.
And, back then it's like, I don't know if we can make another one.
Yeah.
Like, we'll never have that happen again.
Yeah. Hashtag make Solo 2 happen. So our buddy Nick Hartley checking in. Good to see you, man. He says, honestly, to start, Return of the Jedi and Empire are constantly beating each other out for me as the best Star Wars movie. Good evening, gents. Good evening to you too, buddy. Best Star Wars movie? We've done our rankings, and obviously my number one is Revenge of the Sith. But
I don't think they'll change much, but I think that's probably like a 5-year-old episode at this point. We might want to revisit that.
I don't think it'll change for me, dude. Because it's, I know my top three are Revenge of the Sith, Empire, and Rogue One, and that's my favorites. In terms of best, Empire and Rogue One are definitely damn near interchangeable. I mean, which is crazy. That just speaks to the quality of Rogue One. But, anyways, so back to Return of the Jedi. So we went through the script thing. So yeah, I'll just go through these factoids, and we can bullshit about the movie on that level. So the original story was that Leia found out there were 2 new Death Stars being constructed, and she set up a mission to go explore, and that's where it went from there. So it was not just the one Death Star, it was 2. And Marcia Lucas shot down the original script. She was like, like
Marcia butting in again.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Marcia Lucas in this. Yeah. So actually, that is like, and she also was reading through George Lucas's original script, and was like, "This is basically crap." So that's how Lawrence Kasdan got brought back in, because Lucas was writing himself. And
I love how many people never get credit for actually checking George in the early years. Everyone assumes like he just hit like home run after home run, and there's actually a bunch of people behind the scenes that are like, no, stop it. No.
Well,
bad George.
But I mean, like, that's the creative process, I think, is and it's one of the things I've learned, and I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse here for a bit, but I mentioned on the previous episodes, like the stuff that I've listened to and watched recently, like, George Lucas was the driving force, but he definitely needed other people to kind of steer the ship in the right direction. He was the ship, absolutely. But it needs a little bit of direction, and it's like, it's interesting to see this stuff. So look at this. All right, my wife is tuning in, and her comment is Porg heart. But Steph, that is Terry. That is Terry. Say hello to Steph.
Terry's being shy right now. He's being shy.
Steph.
Unfortunately, the only way to make him talk is to hit him really hard, and I just don't have the heart for that.
Well, you can smack him a little bit for Steph. There you go. There you go, Steph.
There you go.
Terry's saying hello. Cam McLeish says, honestly, I think I need to watch Jedi again. I haven't seen it for a little while. I don't know if I've seen it since just before The Rise of Skywalker. What the hell have I been doing this whole time? Kale, you've been tuning into Talking Into Infinity, the preeminent Dream Theater podcast. Sorry.
That's called synergy.
Yep. All right. So Stephanie Lynn, again, my wife wants to know, does Terry know Pickles from Celebration?
Terry's an off-worlder, actually. He came from Batu just a week and a half ago. He's a little guy. He was just born, so I don't think he was around in the time of pickles.
Baby porg stuff. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Kale. We're talking about the script. He says, "Kick your ass back in the corner. Don't come out until you've written a good Star Wars." Look at what is my wife doing? She says, "Pickles was a drunk." Oh my God! Since when is my wife tuning into my podcast?
Right.
I usually just catch shit about podcasting. Now she's in the chat. What the hell's
What
going
I love
on
is
here?
that she's upstairs while you're in the basement doing
I
the
know,
show.
right?
It's
Well-
coming from in the house.
It's like a horror movie thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so back on script here. Look at Kale. Thank you for the accent. Yes. And my wife, I saw the porg. He's cute. That does not explain why you're actually watching my podcast. You've never paid attention to anything I do unless it's cooking your dinner.
She has clearly run to the very bottom of Netflix's catalog.
She's seen all the Netflix.
Right.
I'm bored. I'm going to watch my husband.
She reached the end of the internet and came back to us.
Oh, my God. That's awesome. All right. So,
Terry, what's up, buddy? No?
so the
Terry's got
Death Star.
nothing.
So the Death Star thing. So George Lucas admitted that he brought back the Death Star because he couldn't think of anything else.
I had not heard that.
Yeah, that was yeah.
I mean, I know
was-
the whole like making it 5 times bigger thing was a bit of a cop out, and he did cop to that. He was like, "Yeah, how do you make it threatening when you've already blown it up once? Make it bigger." JJ
Well, there
learned
was-
his lesson well.
Well, they kind of joke about that in that documentary, The Icons Unleashed. When I saw that factoid, they actually kind of mentioned that, like, "Oh no, it's it's not the Death Star; it's way bigger." Like, so they do bring that up, but yeah, that's the whole couldn't think of anything else is kind of crazy because I mentioned on the last episode that the reason that Boba Fett died like a bitch death was because like they had a bunch of footage and couldn't figure out what to do with them, and they were getting close to finishing, and they were so close to finishing they hadn't quite figured out what to do with Boba Fett, and George Lucas literally said, "Yeah, just chuck him in the pit." That's literally why he went out like such a like he literally said, "Bleh." like when they say, "Oh, he's a throwaway character," like I'm sure like you have that opinion, you're not on the Fett train, but he literally was chucked into the pit, just throwaway character by George Lucas himself. So
Yeah. So the narrative of this whole movie seems to be that he really was shooting from the hip. Like, he knew he had to wrap up the story, but he didn't have the details worked out.
yeah,
The classic example is, there's that lingering plot thread in Empire where, Luke's taking off for Bespin, and Obi-Wan is talking to Yoda, and Yoda's like, "No, there is another." And it was not Leia. That was not the point.
yeah,
The original idea was for Luke to go off after Return of the Jedi in search of his long-lost sister. To have Leia be his sister was a, 11th hour change of plans by Lucas again.
right. So Kale says, "Honestly, I've always wondered why A New Hope had the Death Star. That's such an endgame mega weapon that having that up front makes the Empire just seem like they have nothing left." And I bring this up, AJ, because it's kind of a good point, and I've kind of wondered that myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, as much as I love the original trilogy, since we're talking about the whole second Death Star, it's supposed to be way bigger and everything, and then we just discussed, the original story, Leia finding out that there's 2 Death Stars. I wondered that, I've wondered that myself throughout the years. Like, why is it like you've got this thing that kills planets? Like, where do you go from there? And I kind of think
the real
like,
world answer is that he had one shot to make the first movie, so he, picked the best stuff, and then he had to make more. But
right?
but yeah, trying to explain it away in universe, it's a bit harder. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I wondered about it. It was kind of but they do explain it away, and I was going to explain that, but Kale comments again and says it for me. He says also
You're
how
wrecking
to
the show, Kale.
Yeah,
You're wrecking it.
he's actually helping us progress our points. So also how to take him over 19 years to make up the first one, but the second one is 75% done in like maybe 5. Well, AJ, you can correct me on this because I think you have the history better than I do. History down better than I do, I should say. If I'm not mistaken, they were building them simultaneously. Or
I think the comics have covered that.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
definitely in supplemental material. It's never been in any TV show or anything that I've seen. But I'm pretty sure in a book or a novel or something they mentioned that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, Kale, I'm almost positive it was like it's explained somewhere that's like simultaneous build or something like that. So, all right. So let me jump into some factoids here again. This is such riveting fucking podcasting. Way to go. I'm usually much more smooth than this. So, all right, I got to do this one first. Our buddy Discuss Metal Joe, Joseph Friend. You must find another shrubbery. I mean, desktop. Build another one. Now go. We are always down for Monty
It's
Python
to the
crossover.
left, so it gets a step effect.
Oh, Joseph Friend, I love you, man. Thank you for
Oh,
fixing my internet. But yeah, anytime we have a Monty Python crossover, that's worthwhile. If you guys are looking for some awesome Monty Python crossover material from the Nerf Herder Council, just go look up an episode we did several years ago called Return of the Jedi, the Dark Horse of the original trilogy. The last, I would say, 10, 11 minutes are some of the most offensive things we've ever done, but it's also hilarious. And we apologize. We apologize to David Prowse and his family for making fun of him being wall-eyed. So I'll just leave it at that. So just go check that episode out. Anyway, so Ewoks were created to bring the fun back. Bring the kids in. George Lucas is like, I mentioned earlier, like let's make it a little more fun, like A New Hope. But there's a lot of stuff out there that I've learned that George Lucas really actually did buy into the whole this would make a good toy aspect of things. And so the Ewoks were kind of brought in as like, I'm going to make a little bit of money on this. So it was a cash grab, but also a kid grab. So a lot of the stuff that fans have been bitching about for years is actually very true. So there's that.
I do have a particular beef with that, I have to admit.
Okay.
There is an issue with that, and this is where it gets all dangerous, you see, because then you can end up with stuff like this. You can end up with stuff like the Young Jedi Adventures and Nubs, where he's just a blue teddy bear. They didn't even bother like disguising it. He's not an Ewok, I don't think. I think he's some quote new race that just happens to also look like a giant teddy bear. Like they're not even trying anymore. But it started with Return of the Jedi. So as much as we love the movie, there are some things that really should not have happened.
Look at Kale. What in the hell is that?
Yeah, go to YouTube Kids. It's on there. It's free.
I mean, can we really blame? Nice. Can we really blame George Lucas though? I mean, can we? All right, let's just address the elephant in the room where Return of the Jedi is concerned.
The blue elephant?
Can we please just talk about the Ewoks? I do not understand why people think they are so bad. The Empire was defeated by teddy bears, and the Ewoks is all like when I was a kid, I was into it. To me, it was just another Star Wars character. And as I've gotten older, I've never seen them differently. It's the Ewok. They're just there. It's another species. It's a cool aspect of Return of the Jedi. I do not understand the hate that the Ewoks get from a certain segment of the fan base. I mean, I don't get. I mean, where do you stand on that? I'm 100% on pro Ewok, and I don't get why people piss on the Ewoks.
I think How I Met Your Mother nailed it. There's a certain age line. If you saw the movie over a certain age, like 10 years old, you were like, what the fuck is this? And if you were under 10, you're just like, cool, they got spears and they're stubby and they're beating up on stormtroopers. Yay, it's all fun and games. Because we both fall under the 10-year line. But it was a joke in the show, but it's totally true. Like I could totally see if you were over a certain age when they came out, you're like, no way, I no way, But if you're a kid, you're just like anything you get presented, you just accept without question. So we just bought into it, you know. I mean, there's so much weird stuff in Star Wars anyway. Why isn't a sawed-off teddy bear, acceptable? We already dealt with, a little green frog man who was the oldest and wisest of the Jedi. We had a giant slug who was a gangster. He couldn't even get off his own dais, but somehow he's commanding, all these thugs. I mean, is it really such a leap of logic to have these characters?
Yeah. Nick Hartley brings up an amazing point. He says,
yes.
Ewok hunt on Battlefront makes them scary. All right, that one I will give you. If you guys have never played Battlefront and done the mission where it's like the Ewok hunt, where you can either play as, like, you kind of go back and forth if I remember right, but you're either like Ewoks hunting the Empire in the on Endor, or the Empire hunting the Ewoks. It is.
I think the Empire.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Empire in that one, you're not actually hunting the Ewoks. You're just trying to hold out.
Well, whatever it is, I don't give a shit.
It's like
He's
a time
right.
battle where, like, if you can survive for 20 minutes, you win.
Look at Nick also says, he says, these are my Ewoks. Nice.
Dude, it was great though. I remember because it was like nighttime, so you had like flashlights on your blasters and stuff, and like the same way like headlights reflect in animals' eyes, and they have like haunting yellow. Like they did the same for the Ewoks too. So you're just like shining your flashlight around, and all of a sudden like these yellow eyes are just piercing back at you out of the darkness.
Yep.
Like, yes, this is great.
Dude, it was amazing. So Discuss Metal Joe says, to be fair, it wasn't the Empire, it was one garrison of stormtroopers with terrible aim. So you're mad about teddy bears that won one battle? What's the problem?
Well,
That's
it was an entire legion of his best troops.
This movie is so goddamn good. I can't believe we have to cut this thing off at like an hour or hour and a half, whatever the hell we're gonna do. Yeah, like you're right. Isn't that another thing we always thought about? Like, that people say, well, the Ewoks defeated the Empire. Like, well, no, they kind of just like blew the shit out of some of them at the bunker, the shield generator. So everybody else
Really,
just
they
went,
were cannon fodder.
yeah,
They did not
basically.
defeat the Empire. They just distracted the stormtroopers long enough for the humans to do it.
Yeah. So like, what did the rest of the Empire do? They saw the shield generator blow up and they went, fuck it, like, yeah. Hey, AJ. Do you care if it falls?
What?
The shield bunker.
Fuck it.
Any of you guys watching or listening, if you have not seen Mel Brooks' History of the World, that was a direct paraphrase of Mel Brooks' History of the World, and it's amazing. So go watch that movie. If you haven't seen it and you're a Mel Brooks fan, you are missing out. So, all right. So, let's get back to the factoids here, because I got some good shit coming up.
Okay.
So, did you know that Irvin Kershner turned down Return of the Jedi?
I didn't know he was ever considered for it.
Yeah, they first asked him, like, hey, you want to come back? He's like, nope. And rumor is that his attitude was, I don't want to be an employee of Lucasfilm.
Wow.
So he was like, yeah, kind of, how actors don't want to be associated with only one role for the rest of their lives? He didn't want to be like, well, I'm that Star Wars guy.
I
So-
get that, but I mean, then you look at RoboCop 2 and you're like, really? That's what you wanted to do instead?
Well, that is literally next in my notes. That was the exact thing I was going to say. Like, dude, RoboCop 2. By the way, real quick, Mimar nails it. If you're not a Mel Brooks fan, you're doing it wrong. Mimar, fuck yes, you are completely right. So, yeah, like, he's like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do Return of the Jedi, but I'm going to tell you, this RoboCop 2 script, I think this is where it's at. Like, ugh. And don't get me wrong, like, one of these times we're going to do an episode about the original RoboCop, because that's one of my all-time favorite shitty movies. I love RoboCop. It's so good. Like, Paul Verhoeven has just done a few of these, like, just brilliant things. But how do you say no to Return of the Jedi and say yes to RoboCop 2. Like,
I don't know. Maybe I know Kirshner and Lucas had, some issues on Empire, so maybe it was just like it was such an ass ache. He's like, no, thanks, I'm good.
Good. Well, again, he said he didn't want to just be known as the Star Wars guy, but he also did have issues during the production of Empire. Like George Lucas is kind of like looking over everybody's shoulder and stuff, and it's kind of
Yeah, it's weird. He's like, I don't want to do the directing, but I'm gonna micromanage you.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's one of the things that from the book and the documentary that I've been watching and listening to. That's exactly what it is. Like he doesn't want to direct, but he's directing.
Mm-hmm.
He can't. He's a control freak. So, I want you to do me a favor because you can share your screen. Look up a Star Wars character in Return of the Jedi called Ree-Yees, REE-YEES. Because my next factoid comes relating to this character. So
okay.
this guy is actually it's called the Frog Dog. I've seen it called the Frog Dog handler in Jabba's palace. So if you pull up an image and share the screen real fast whenever you pull it up.
I got it right here.
All right. So Ree-Yees.
Not a high quality image, but it's an image.
It's all good. So this guy, the three-eyed dude, it's actually, for those of you guys listening on the audio feed, he's a Gran, Gran. So this guy in Return of the Jedi is the Frog Dog handler, they call him. So it's Jabba's like gross dog, what the hell ever. But did you
the
know
one that's like hanging outside the palace that belches?
No, this is he's in the palace. Like there's a bunch of screenshots of him and everything, and you can see him on camera.
Oh, right.
Obviously,
yeah. He barks. He's sitting at the stairs, like the base of the stairs, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's the same creature that's outside too, though. Not the
No.
same one necessarily, but I think that's the same design, isn't it?
No, it is different because that one has two eyes. I mean, come on, AJ. For fuck's sake, dude. If we're gonna talk Return of the Jedi, know your Return of the Jedi. It's your
Are we
favorite movie.
talking
For
about
God's
the
sakes.
handler or the animal? I'm talking about the animal.
Love of God, dude. Can I just get to my factoid? Jeez. Oh, come on. So, this is my factoid.
Mm-hmm.
So, the original Admiral Akbar was Ree-Yees. So, this was supposed to be Akbar. But they couldn't get his eyes to focus like in a straight line on the camera because there's three of them. So, he couldn't get to focus and stuff like that. So, they changed it. And they had this, like, they called it Calamari Man. And that's where Akbar came from. So originally, Admiral Akbar was supposed to be a Gran, and it was supposed to be Ree-Yees. And they changed it out because they couldn't get the eyes to focus on camera properly to be a working, like, talking character.
Wow,
So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So that's, how Admiral Akbar came about. And another factoid about Admiral Akbar, Tim Rose. So you know how when they actually blow up the Death Star, and you see Akbar, and it kind of looks like he slumps down in his seat, like, kind of slumps down.
Yeah. I always thought that
So-
looked a little weird.
Well, okay, so Tim Rose was just about the age in the early 70s when he could have been drafted into Vietnam. And he was basically, I don't know if he would actually use this term to describe himself, but kind of like one of those like conscientious objectors or whatever. Didn't believe in fighting, didn't believe in war and all that kind of shit. So Richard Marquand, he was British, obviously. One of his contract negotiations was he had to have his own editor, and that guy was very British, and they always wanted to edit things very angry, which will come into play a little bit later in some more factoids that I have. And they wanted aggressive and angry. Well, when they were filming the scene, with Admiral Akbar and saying, "Oh, the Death Star blew up. I want you all celebrating and going crazy, like, yeah, like we killed the enemy." Tim Rose was like, "No, like I'm against war. I'm not going to do that." And Richard Marquand actually got pissed at him for not doing it. But he said, "No, that's not how I would react." He said, "I'm the general of this massive army, and I just sent several hundred people to their deaths. It's like I sent the X-Wings out and the Y-Wings and stuff like that. He's like, and I have to do that. It's war. That's what you do. And so when the whole thing blows up and all this stuff is like, instead of like, yay, we won, he said it, I would be feeling like I'm glad we won, but unfortunately I'm feeling the weight of sending people to their deaths for a good cause. And he was feeling it and that's why he slumped in his chair. He's like, he was thinking about that. And that's why I slumped down. Cause he was like, oh man, like it's the emotional weight of, yes, we won, but all of the sacrificed lives that had to happen for that, so that it's a very emotional performance. And apparently after that, like Richard Marquand got pissed at him for not like blowing up and being cool about it. And he was like, no, dude. And now that when you watch that scene, at least for me, and that's where Tim Rose was coming from, it adds so much more gravitas to that scene. It's like that's amazing. Like, because to me, I always saw it as like man, thank God that's over. Like that's kind of like what I got from it. But now knowing that Tim Rose it's like, dude, like he's thinking like a general. I just had to sacrifice so many innocent lives for the greater good. Like that's amazing.
It's a great decision, on the actor's part to play it that way. The mask wasn't up to the performance, unfortunately. Even as a kid, I saw that scene and I thought like he had just been shot, like there was a traitor on the bridge or something. I thought he was slumping over dead. Because everybody else is partying and he's just like slumps over and his face mask isn't moving at all. So I was like, that looks like a dead body now. They should have like animated the face a little bit or something to like indicate that there was an expression there, because there was an utter lack of expression instead. So I've always found that a little bit confusing. I'm glad you explained that, because I never really understood why he did. I always thought it was like a sigh of relief, kind of like the war is over, we did our job, now we can stop fighting. But the deeper level of like the being somber about it and feeling the weight of all the the souls that went to their deaths in the pursuit of all this, that's like another layer that, like I said, a 1980s prosthetic just can't communicate to the audience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will give him one thing. I mean, we both got something out of the performance. You know what I mean? Like we both got, I'm tired. Like at least it wasn't just like some just character going like, like, when the Chuck E. Cheese animals, like they stop singing their song and then just,
right,
and like fall over to the left. Like it wasn't like that. It was, we could tell there was something there.
My first interpretation as a kid and for a long time was that like he was dying. Like he had died. Like his last act was to command the fleet, and then because he sounded really old, I was like, maybe he is really old, and maybe like he was dying, but he hit it so he could like carry on the fight to the very end, and then like with his dying breath, he issued the final command, and then he, I had all kinds of theories.
Right.
Another fun part about that, by the way, the line "It's a trap" was actually not the original line. In
really?
test
Okay.
Screenings, it was "It's a trick," and it didn't play well, so they recut the line. So yeah, that was a reshoot.
No kidding. Okay.
And I don't imagine. I'm glad they did it, because could you imagine if it's a trick, like that just doesn't play as well.
I mean, would it though? Like if we didn't know that it's a trap,
It's a ruse.
It's a bugaboo. No. It's a ruse. No. Like, just picture him going through all of the different things. What is this chicanery? No, stop. Okay, let's just look. Let's just,
It's Balderdash.
So, all right. So, Kale says, can I interject and say that I wish Adam... his name is AJ Kale. Thank you. Can I interject and say that I wish Adam was right? We can't give away AJ's real name on the show. Can I interject and say that Adam is right, because then it wouldn't let Akbar die so stupidly in The Last Jedi. I'm going to say this once, and this is a whole nother discussion for another time. I don't think that Admiral Akbar dies in The Last Jedi because you don't fucking see it. And I know he does technically, but you don't see it. And it's so disrespectful that I don't think he dies. So we're just going to leave that alone. Yeah.
Nobody, no death.
Yeah. Discuss Metal Joe. Now who's going to eat my cereal? As he slumped over in the chair. There's a Robot Chicken reference. Nice.
Right.
All right. So
What was it?
what was that? Yeah, guys.
Your
if you have
tongues
not-
can't repel flavor of that magnitude.
Admiral Akbar cereal. Now with what was it like? Now with brine shrimp
That
or
was
something?
brine shrimp. Yeah.
Yeah, now with brine shrimp. Yeah, if you guys have not watched this Robot Chicken Star Wars, go do it. And I own all 3 of them on Amazon. And if there's any way I can share it with any of you guys listening or watching and just give it to you to watch, I would be more than happy to, because it is the funniest shit ever.
It's
Big
got to be all
mistake.
over YouTube by now.
Yeah. Big mistakey. So more Richard Marquand stuff. He basically had no balls, and George Lucas came in and ran second unit, so that he basically he wasn't directing but was kind of directing. So he was on set and everything. Like, Marquand was apparently a disaster, as we all know. But
You
Anthony,
wouldn't know it by the finished product, though.
well, apparently
I-
he didn't have a lot to do with the finished product.
In the
Which-
modern era, this thing would have been shit on so hard before it even hit theaters, because all this stuff would have leaked online. We would have read all these reports and been like, "Oh God, it's going to be terrible." Like, this movie could very well have bombed in the modern era because it would have been written off before it ever debuted.
Well, I mean, dude, I'll bring up another Marquand thing, and I can't wait to get to one of the upcoming ones with you, dude, because it's something that we've seen in person. So I got a really good one coming up. But before we get there, so did you know that at the time in 1982 when they were filming, the sail barge, they built the entire sail barge, like the full thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could, like, one of my Facebook friends, actually a band buddy of mine from years back, really good buddy of mine, Jesse Schultz. His dad was in California, and when I posted about Return of the Jedi a couple weeks ago when you and I went to the theater, his dad actually went to the desert in 82 and took pictures, and Jesse on my Facebook page posted pictures of the sets from Return of the Jedi, the full sail barge.
Oh, that's
So-
so cool.
Yeah, so if any of you guys are friends with me on Facebook, if you go and you look back, and I'm talking about AJ and I going to see Return of the Jedi back on, I think it was April 28th in the theater. If you look in the comments, my buddy Jesse Schultz posted his dad's pictures of, taking pictures over the fence, and it's got the whole sail barge. So anyway, Richard Marquand, like, basically with the first 2 movies, obviously, they would have partial sets, and the rest were matte paintings or blue screen or something. Well, Richard Marquand could not visualize things that big, so with the sail barge, like, because he couldn't visualize, okay, this is over here, this is over there, they had to build the sail barge in its entirety. That's why they built the entire sail barge life size.
Are you kidding me?
And yep. And so that's what they did. And now I want you to guess how many shots in the movie the entire sail barge is in. The full sail barge shown one time in one shot. How many times is it shown in the movie?
You just
This is
said
good.
one time.
Did I?
Yeah.
God damn it. I blew my own trivia questions.
Yeah, you gave it away, man.
Son of a
What
bitch.
color was George Washington's white horse?
God damn it. Well, all right, there went that. So, yeah, one time. They built the sail barge full size, and it was only, in one shot. Only one. All that money for one shot.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
How do you get a directing gig on a movie like a Star Wars project and then not have the imagination to picture this thing in your head and need the whole thing built for real?
Dude, basically, like, the guy was worthless. And you normally, like, when you hear stories like this about movie productions and stuff, and and I've said many times, I'll watch all the behind the scenes stuff on movies, and I listen to all kinds of biographies and stuff about music and everything. and you'll get differing views. Kind of this guy thinks it's this way, this guy thinks it's that way.
Mm-hmm.
But with Richard Marquand, it's pretty much universal. The guy was basically worthless. So, like, it was just not a good choice. They liked the movie that he had did, nice English, that he had done. They liked the movie that he had done, and he was, in the running with David Lynch, and David Lynch said no. So they're like, okay, well, let's do Richard Marquand, but wasn't worth a damn. So, now to get to my awesome factoid. In fact, you know what? I'm going to save this one to the end. I'm going to tease.
For those who are watching on the live stream, though, I want to share something real quick here.
Okay.
These are the photographs that.
Oh, you found them?
Were shared. Yeah.
Nice. Can we solo this? Let's see. Full screen layout. There we go.
There you go. Yep.
Thank you for looking that up.
The barge lived. That's one thing. I mean, doesn't it make you feel better that the actual sail barge was really built as a real thing at some point?
Right?
It's
Dude,
like, we all knew the Millennium Falcon kicks ass, but having it built to scale right there at Disney for us, that's so much better.
Dude, God, look how beautiful that. I'm so glad you looked that up, man. Can you imagine seeing that? Like, I wonder what the scale is on that. Like how, like the actual like footage, because that's just, man. Oh,
I mean, I see stairs and stuff. That's like a 3 or 4 story tall set.
Yeah. I mean, how can you not visualize something? I mean, and okay, like, am I just being kind of like a douchebag here? But I don't know, dude. I've never thought the barge was that big. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of felt like it was like the throne room, and then it was kind of like the deck, and it was like kind of like a yacht, but a small yacht.
Yeah. It wasn't until the HasLab sail barge came out a few years back that you got a sense of scale, and even then, it didn't seem that big because it was scaled to the old Kenner Jabba the Hutt figure. You're like, okay, well, Jabba basically is like a sixth of the length of this thing, I think. So it's 6 Jabbas long. Okay. Didn't seem that big.
Yeah. It's like from the outside it seemed big, and from the inside shots it seemed kind of small.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's cool. Man, thank you for looking that up, man. It's good enough that I've got my computer running properly. Thank you, Joseph Wren. And my video's not freezing, so I wasn't about to take a chance to go on Facebook on another tab.
Right.
So. So as we
Can you
have on
imagine
screen,
just going out in the desert and you see this stuff just sitting there.
well, dude, like there's fence around it and stuff like that, but like the fact that you can get that close to it, I mean, that's the other thing. Like, I mean, the guy was behind a fence. The person who took these photos, it's like,
yeah, you can see in the one picture in the upper right there. There's clearly a piece of chain link fence in the foreground.
yeah. So it's like, must not have been that much of a secret, I guess. Like, how would you not know
how do
though?
you hide something that big, right?
Yeah. Blue Harvest. So,
Yeah.
all right. So I'm gonna save the awesome one for the end. So it's a little tease for the next few minutes. So I talked about this previously on the show that, Marsha Lucas was kind of like the emotional heart and center of Star Wars, and she did all the great cuts. And during the making of Return of the Jedi, especially near the end, like she and George Lucas were going through a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Marquand's cut, like
She probably got tired of him writing terrible scripts.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because here we go. So Richard Marquand, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things in his contract was he got to hire his own editor, and so he got first cut, and he also got to hire his own editor. Well, they looked at his cut and it was absolute garbage, which actually got him fired. His cut was so bad, and everything had pretty much been everything was filmed, so he got fired because his cut was so shitty, and they were so done with the guy because he's a pussy basically. And as I mentioned, also they went for like anger takes, like Luke Skywalker. They had one of the things that they did, George Lucas always did was get a shitload of takes because you never know which one you're going to need to use. So the British people, apparently they were a big fan of like aggression, and that shows more emotion. But Marsha thought that especially the scene after Yoda died, where Luke has the scene with Ghost Obi-Wan. There's a lot of anger. He's all pissed off and everything, and she was like, well, that's not how a Jedi acts. So she found the most mellow performance that Mark Hamill gave, and that's what ended up in the movie. So George Lucas, like, he fired Mark Wan. That cut was crap. And even though they were going through a divorce and they were basically almost persona non grata at that point, like, that's a whole nother story for another time. He's can you help me? She said, yeah. And so she recut, Mark Wan's thing. And she took on all of the emotional scenes, like anything that had emotion or just something with some, not the battle scenes, not the aggressive scenes. It was, anything that had something to do with the feel of the movie and the feel of Star Wars. Like, she took all of them and made it what it was. Like, for example, like the, Anakin's death, when, Luke takes the helmet off. She added beats, added pauses that in a tiny bit just to let it drag out a little bit, just to give it some more energy, like make it feel like something bigger, when Vader throws the Emperor down the shaft, the original scene he went down the shaft, okay, he's dead. And she went, well, you can't do that.
He's got to shout no.
Seriously, we're going to do that? Oh, boy, why do I bother? Anyway, if I could finish, please, with my nerdiness.
You might as well just soloed the damn show. You're doing all the talking.
Well, I'm sorry. Like, I've got all this stuff. So, but when the whole big blue explosion comes up and comes back, she said there needs to be something bigger. It's the Emperor. It's like the end of everything. It can't just be splat. Like it can't do that. So she was the one that came up with that. So ILM made the shot. All this other stuff, and because of the stuff that she had suggested, and Mark Wan's cut was so bad, they had to do a bunch of reshoots at the very last minute. They said this is probably the most stressful Star Wars movie of the original trilogy. And they just had to reshoot a bunch of stuff, and it turned out to be this like brilliant, emotional climax thing, all because Marsha Lucas was like, this is not an action movie, man. This is, if you're going to bring this whole thing to a conclusion, there's way more here than just lightsaber battles and blowing up the Death Star. So,
can you imagine the pressure that was on that crew to deliver this thing? I mean, it was the culmination of the biggest movie event in history.
yeah.
Star Wars was a phenomenon like no other before, and this movie no one had ever done like a trilogy like this.
So I have to ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
Are you bumping a volume control? I'm sorry to do this live on air. You just got super quiet.
No, I'm not bumping the volume control at all. I actually bumped it up.
Now I can barely hear you.
I don't know what the problem is.
Am I sound? Can you hear me?
I have a message for his mother.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
I believe he's tooling with you, sir.
Anyway, yeah, I'm probably blowing everything out now. I don't know.
No, I can barely hear you. You know who's going to tell us whether or not you're like too quiet or too loud is Kale. Kale's always like the. You got quiet like.
I've got Joseph Wren texting me, telling me, and he's saying it's better. So.
Okay. Well, then I will try and listen.
Apparently, I'm dead silent now. Oh well.
You're dead silent. Okay. Well, to me, I'm not dead silent. And I'm about to bring up. You got to get your volume up somehow, because we have to talk about the factoid that I saved till last. And dude, you are going to love this one. And by the way, guys, before, this is not the end of the show. Like, I'm going to bring this up, but AJ wants us to stick around after the normal outro because we got some stuff to talk to you about. So, there you go. You're back. Look at you. All right.
Well, I'm now maxed out, so I have no idea what happened.
Well, turn down a little bit.
Yeah, see? This is the problem. Now I'm red across the board over here.
Well, I'll turn down,
I am.
All right.
Anyway.
Cool. All right. Just be loud. Who gives a shit? We'll balance it out later.
Right.
All right.
We'll fix it in post.
Yes. Fuck it. We're doing it live. Okay. So you and I have told the story many times about Star Wars Celebration. I believe was it Anaheim when Chris and Andrea got engaged?
Orlando, 2017, I believe.
Orlando.
No. 15.
22.
It was Anaheim.
15. Yes, Anaheim 15. So our very good friends, Chris Filla and Andrea Filla, who are the brother. It's our excellent buddy Mark Thrasher, his brother Chris. By the way, Mark, all prayers out to you. I actually talked to him tonight. If I'm telling tales out of school, Mark's son Brandon, he's 18 or 19, was diagnosed with leukemia. Had a second round of chemo this week. Mark, Brandon, God bless you. Mark is one of our very best friends. We met him at our very first celebration in 2010. We've been friends ever since, and you guys have seen him on the show. So anyway, so Mark's brother Chris, at the time his girlfriend Andrea, who became his fiance that night, 2015 in Anaheim, we were at a after-hours party, after-hours club, and Chris and Andrea got engaged in the VIP section of the bar in front of Jake Lloyd and Daniel Logan. So, Boba Fett and obviously Anakin Skywalker, they got engaged. But AJ and I were at the other side of the bar a few minutes later, and we happened to look over, and Kenny Baker was there in his motorized wheelchair. We've told this story before, but we'll tell it again. And he had this, like a goblet of wine. Remember, this dude's like 3 foot something. And I've got a frozen mug. So imagine this frozen mug for me. I'm 5'10". Imagine that was like 4 times as big. And then imagine that on Kenny
ridiculous.
Baker. Yeah, it was enormous. But he's also passed out. So he's got this circle of people. It's like he's in like an area with like a couple couches and a ring. And he was in his little wheelchair and passed out with this huge goblet of wine. I mean, that fucking thing had to hold what, AJ? At least 3/4 of a bottle of wine in that one thing.
Right. It was like, yeah, why bother with the goblet at all? Just drink the bottle.
Yeah. So we're like, and we're sitting there drinking at the bar, having a blast. We look over. I go, oh, AJ, shit. We look. I'm like, AJ, it's Kenny Baker. And we look over like, it's Kenny Baker, passed out in front of a bunch of people having a blast. So about half hour later, I'm looking over, or I don't remember if it was you or I looked over and like, oh shit, he woke up. So we see Kenny Baker wake up, and the first thing he does, he grabs this goblet and drains it. And we're like, oh my God, like what the hell? So that, Kenny Baker, like that's, amazing. I met him one time, super sweet guy. Like I just met him in passing. It was like, holy crap, couldn't get a picture. Like, hey Kenny, whatever. So this is where my factoid comes from. So if you guys are familiar with the documentary Empire of Dreams, which I can basically quote chapter and verse like I can the movies, Kenny Baker was supposed to be Wicket, okay? And in Empire of Dreams, he says that he was all excited to film because he wanted to, he had filmed with Carrie before, Carrie Fisher, and he liked filming with Carrie. Well, on the day of filming, so I came down with food poisoning, and I couldn't make it, so they brought in Warwick to do it, Warwick Davis. So that's how Warwick got the role of Wicket, because Kenny Baker got sick, food poisoning, and so Warwick Davis came in and did a great job. They kept him as Wicket. Well, in this Icons Unleashed, the producers of the movie tell a different story, and they say that on the day of shooting, Kenny Baker did not show up. And AJ, this is why our story kind of, I hate to take sides, but I'm going to take sides on the documentary. They could not find Kenny Baker, and they sent someone out to find him, and they did find him at the lake, which was like close to the shooting location, drunk off his ass and completely passed out on the beach. So George Lucas said, bring in Davis. Bring in Warwick. So Kenny Baker's story, which, and if you think about it, AJ, doesn't it make sense? Like in the official, I mean, the Empire of Dreams showed up in the the DVD set, the first released DVD box set of the original trilogy. Like that was the highlight of the fourth disc. It was Empire of Dreams, and it was the Star Wars documentary. So of course they're not going to say, yeah, Kenny Baker was all fucked up on the beach. Like, no. So they let him say, I had food poisoning and I didn't get to do the part. So of course they're going to put that on the official thing. But Howard Kazanjian and everything says no. Howard Kazanjian's like, no, he was passed out drunk off his ass on a beach. So we're like, I get Warwick Davis. Like, how crazy is that?
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I totally believe that. I like the sanitized version coming out first, and then you get the real scoop later.
Yeah. I mean, like, what?
It's proof that you can't even trust the behind-the-scenes stuff, which I kind of believe, because have you ever seen a DVD commentary or anything where the actors and the director weren't like, this is the best cast and crew I've ever worked with. They were all a delight. It was a wonderful experience, and I love the studio, too. Thank you very much.
Yep. Well, I mean, that Icons Unleashed thing, like, Anthony Daniels kind of, like, craps on a ton of stuff. And I obviously, they cut, they picked and chose and picked and chose, or whatever the hell the fucking language is. But
your grammar's doing great tonight, man.
I know. I'm just excellent at this. I'm so busy watching to see, like, is my video lagging that like losing my place? But yeah, like, Anthony Daniels is basically crapping on half the thing. And yet in other things, he's like completely just, ebullient in his praise and all that kind of stuff. So, but that's actually specifically, again, why I brought up the Kenny Baker thing, because you and I actually saw Kenny Baker and in person, like not 40 feet away from us. And so if there was one of those two stories that, you or I would believe, it would probably be the one that he's passed out drunk on the beach.
Dude, that scene in Celebration at the after party was like right out of Bad Santa. Like, man, you can't drink for shit. I weigh 98 pounds, you dick.
God damn. Right? That is so true, man. Remember we saw him, we're like, holy shit, that's Kenny Baker. And holy shit, he's fucked up.
That was one of those weird, like, celebrity moments. Like, oh, famous people get trashed too. Wow, okay.
They're actually people? What?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So yeah, so I had to save that one till last. But dude, to encapsulate,
I want to go back to the desert for one final factoid, though.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
Because I have my one Black Series saber here, and if you notice the color it lights up, not the original color. The mystery of the original poster has now been answered, actually. If you recall, one of the things that always struck me as odd about the original poster, and I'll try to Google this up as I do, if you'll notice, Luke's lightsaber is blue.
As soon as you said the poster, I was like, yeah, it's blue.
And it never really struck me as weird until a couple of years ago. I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, the blue one disappeared in Empire, and then he had the green one. So what the hell's with the poster? So it turns out that it was originally blue when they began shooting, and it wasn't until they got to that desert scene. And when Luke is busy waving around his lightsaber in against the desert sky, which is also blue, it didn't show up very well. So they decided to switch the color just to make it stand out more. I thought that was like an incredible little bit of trivia there. I'm like, really?
No shit.
Yeah. Yeah, they went ahead and changed the lightsaber color specifically just so it would show up better on film.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, because that's always been one of the mysteries, right? It's like, why the hell? How did they get the poster so wrong? And they didn't. At the time the poster was made, it was blue.
I'm surprised you noticed.
In fact,
I've never noticed that. Like I've always, obviously the poster is the poster, but I've never.
I mean, I'll show. I'm gonna bring up the original poster as an example to kind of corroborate this. Sorry for the poor quality, but it's the Revenge of the Jedi poster.
Oop, sorry, dude.
All right, one of us controls it, not the other one. But
Who talks first? You
yeah,
talk
in
first, I
this
talk first?
poster, he's got a blue saber as well. So the blue saber must have been like a late change because all the promotional art was already in process, and it just showed up different on screen.
No shit. I never
So,
knew
yeah.
that. I
That's
also
the
never
story.
noticed it
That's
either.
how
so.
green was invented as a color. Yeah.
And yet it's the greatest lightsaber ever. I mean, can we just agree on that? Like, I mean, you and I have always had the favorite lightsaber as Luke's Return of the Jedi saber.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
like you went and built one last weekend, and
I did.
and we're very disappointed. And I'm sorry, man. Like there will never be a
Also green.
as well as should be. Well, hold up the hilt if you're gonna. Don't show the blade. Hold up the hilt to the camera.
Well, I didn't build Luke's.
Well, you can still show your
Besides,
lightsaber.
I'm going to
for a little-
customize it. I'm going to
Okay, well-
customize it.
All right. That looks like graphite and stuff. We'll solo this,
Yeah.
and then we'll get back to Return of the Jedi. All right.
This is the power and control build. You have 4 choices of build and then 2 different components within that to choose from. So you have like 8 different combinations you can build.
All right. See, I don't know if I could do one because I'd be like, well, I just want Luke's lightsaber. Like,
Right.
and I
Yeah,
haven't.
and you can't build exactly Luke's lightsaber, of course.
Well, because you're not Luke, but All right. So, final thoughts on Return of the Jedi. Dude, I know we went through a bunch of factoids and stuff like that, but I mean, just getting into the heart and soul of the movie, I think, we're biased, and I don't know that there's a ton of other movies to compare this to, but as a conclusion to a trilogy, especially in a franchise that is so beloved and so popular, I don't know how they could have done any better with this movie, especially when you're coming off the back of Empire Strikes Back. Like, that's just, I mean, you can't get better than Empire Strikes Back. So you have to top Empire, but finish out this trilogy. Like, I think it doesn't top Empire, I think. To me, it sits side by side with Empire. Empire is this big, bulky, emotional thing. But then Jedi is like fun and it closes it out well. So I kind of think they're like brother-sister type of a situation. But I don't know how you can get any better than...
That's an apt metaphor.
Well, I kind of did that on purpose, so thank you for pointing it out, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you get anything better than this. It's to this day, people that have only seen the original trilogy, like, no one has ever complained about Jedi. Like, well, the ending sucks. Oh, it ends on a fart. Like, no, like, it's the original trilogy is excellent all the way through, and the ending is satisfying. And the only bitch that people can have is, the special editions with the additional graphics and the parties and all the different planets and stuff like that, and adding, Hayden Christensen instead of Sebastian Shaw. Like, other than
Jedi
that,
rocks.
yeah. I mean, if that's your only complaint, like, I think it's an excellent conclusion to the best movie trilogy of all time. I mean, and it's it's emotionally satisfying too. It's not just the story like, okay, well, the good guys won. That's easy. But emotionally it's satisfying too. It's on a different level, I think. So I think that's why it works so well. And again, obviously you and I have a much bigger connection to it, but just strictly speaking from, the perspective of being fans of movies and the movies themselves, like on that level alone, it works really well. So where do you stand as to where this, the whole trilogy ended and the legacy of Return of the Jedi?
I think it had an almost impossible job, and it nailed it. It had to bring back the fun, because Empire was the dark chapter. So you had to bring back the fun of the first movie. You had to pay off all the stuff from the second movie. You had to wrap up all the plot threads, but not make the whole thing just seem like checking boxes. Like, okay, that character's taken care of. That character's taken care
Right.
of. Blah, 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 right on down the line. And they managed to tell, like I said, they managed to tell their own story while also paying off the two that came before it and make it fun the whole way through. So, yeah, I think it had the hardest job of the three because it had to live up to the other two and also further the story and also wrap it up and also be a good time. I really am still floored to this day that it's actually the lowest performing at the box office of the three. You'd think off the back of Empire that the next one would just blow the roof off the place. But, hey, crowds are stupid.
As Solo proves. So,
all
right.
Hold on a second. Nick Hartley coming in late with the awesome comment, though. Shout out to the theatrical version Ewok celebration music. Yes, Yub Nub is amazing.
That is the actual.
Thank you for reminding me of that. When the audio version of this goes out, we are going to sub out our usual outro music for Yub Nub.
Yes, dude. So here's another. I've got another Return of the Jedi factoid. So I've mentioned several times on the show, I sing in a band. I've been doing it for over 30 years. The very first song I ever performed live in front of an audience was actually Yub Nub. It was in at Zeller's grade school in Strongsville, Ohio.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Yep.
Wow.
So my
we used to know the words to that whole thing.
I did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, because you and I learned it. And so technically my quote unquote singing career started with Yub Nub. So there's Nick again. Celebrate the light. Hell yeah, dude. All right. So I know you've got something to after our usual closing, but I've got something to bring up before. So first of all, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. I might do I posted on Facebook tonight trying to do a watch along of Return of the Jedi tomorrow night if I can figure out how to do it cross-platform, but it'll be on StreamYard. If you're friends with me on Facebook, we'll figure that stuff out. But before AJ gets to his thing, I have something to shout AJ out for. So for those of you who can't tell, AJ's the brother who's in shape. I'm the one's out of shape. You can tell my head goes down in like a Jabba shape down towards the shoulders. AJ's is the opposite. So we are from Cleveland, for those of you guys that are listening from out of town. AJ competed in the Cleveland Marathon last weekend, and he's done a lot of races. He's a CrossFit guy and this, that, and the other. So I'm going to let AJ, tell his story for a little bit here. But I wanted this to be out to all you guys that listen to the show and all you guys on YouTube and everything like that. So AJ, correct me if I'm wrong. You've done the marathon before. It's kind of difficult. It's a longer one. And you wanted
It's a marathon.
God damn it. Why? Why? All right. On that note, we're going to close up shop tonight. It's Nerf Herder Council.
Yeah.
But
go get an audiobook.
Yeah, exactly. So you wanted to beat your best time by 3 minutes, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Ironically, my birthday is May 3rd, 5/3, and I've only run one marathon before in my life, and it was 2017. It was this race, and I ran it in 5 hours and 3 minutes.
All right.
So
I
thought that was ironic.
So you wanted to beat your time by 3 minutes, and you actually, I'll let you tell the story. You didn't just beat it by 3 minutes. You insert story.
I beat it by 3 minutes and 15 more.
Yep.
I literally ran my ass off, and I came in at 445 instead of 503. I got a really tiny medal this time, actually, though. It was much bigger last time.
Yes, it's a medal. It's tiny.
But hey, I got it. It counts. And hell, I actually ran 29 miles this weekend because I ran a 5K the day before, and I took it easy as a warm up for the marathon, and I got third place in my age group for that. So I got a bronze medal for that one. So go me. I didn't know we were going to be bragging about running on the show, but okay, there you go.
Well, no, you weren't.
And I'm
but
standing
I
this
am.
whole time too. My legs still work. So yay.
Funny, mine does too. You ran like 30 miles, and I basically took a fat ass tumble off the stage and I'm covered in stitches.
Why don't you show yours? Yeah.
There's my medal for the weekend, and I won't show you my knee because that one's even bigger and grosser. But grosser's not a word, but I just made it up. Yeah, you're
but
busy
did you
running.
finish the show?
I damn sure did finish the show.
Damn right, brother. That's medal right there.
That's. I gotta say, man, I'm a little proud of that. Like, and I shouldn't be because I don't understand. I really. All right, full disclosure. Why wouldn't you finish a show? Like, here's what happened. So I wiped out on stage. I've been playing. I'm 47. I've been playing since I was 18. I've never had a stage accident. This last weekend, I had a stage accident. We have these we call them rock boxes, but they're kind of like ego boxes, and they have production on front of them and stuff. Well, our guitar player makes them. He's a welder. It's corrugated steel. They're I could show you my belly right now, but I've got the pattern of the damn rock box ripped into my stomach. Like, I basically tumbled. I went to get up on the rock box, fourth song of the first set. Tumbled off the front of the stage. I opened up a huge gash in my wrist, this one right there. There was fat coming out of it, which let's be honest, it's amazing that any cut that I get, there's not fat coming out of. But as you can see from my arm, if you're watching on YouTube, like I was, and this looks nice compared to what it was. But my knee, so this one, my cut had fat coming out of it. You could see down to the muscle, the one on my knee. It's very deep. It was 2 inches long, and So fourth song of the first set, I tumbled, and yet I sat up and hit the verse. We were doing Sharp Dressed Man, and I tumbled, and I sat up and had the mic in my hand. And I did the second verse, and then got back up on stage and finished the first set. Second set, I had to go back to the nurse's office. There's a whole story I won't tell because there are some nurses where we were playing that could lose their licenses and their jobs for doing what they did for me, but God bless them. They're beautiful people. I was back there. I got stitches in 2 different locations, shitload of medication, and I came out and I closed the second set with Footloose, and then drank a beer during the set break, and I closed the show, third set, and was doing rock tunes, and off we go. So AJ and I had quite a hardcore weekend, but I think his a little more hardcore than mine. Mine just involved, a damn near medical emergency. So, yeah.
Hey,
So
I
it was
avoided
quite a
injury, and you fell into one, so that's fine.
Yeah, well, you know what? I've never had an injury in my life that required stitches, anything like, anything close to anything in my life, much less on stage. And I kind of rolled all of the things I should have had all into one big, ball of, stitches and blood and fat and ibuprofen. And so, but that being said, I specifically wanted to bring up, your marathon, AJ, because like that's just, it's one thing to beat your time by, you wanted to beat it by 3 minutes, but you beat it by 18 minutes. Like that's, but you had also ran the day before. So, and it's just, dude, you're, full disclosure, you're 44 years old. You are in incredible shape. You're a CrossFit guy, this, that, and the other, but dude, you're 44 years old. Like that's not something that the average 44-year-old does. And it's bringing the whole show full circle. Return of the Jedi is where you and I became not only Star Wars. This is a movie that kind of cemented us as best friends, and Star Wars is our thing, and this is what did it. And that I am so proud of you, and I love you so much. And this is, I'm so proud of you for this, what you did this weekend. It's incredible to run that amount of distance and to beat your time by that much. And it's like it's so inspirational, dude. And I love you so very much. And I'm so proud of you. And you kicked ass, dude. You absolutely kicked ass. So I wanted to bring that up
so
on the
much,
show.
Brother. Thank
Not
you.
a problem, dude.
And in return, I get your text at like 2:30 in the morning or 3 o'clock when you're, still running on stage juice, driving home from Lima, 2.5 hours away, and you're just like, you're so thrilled and you're so pumped, and you text me about it because you want me to know, and we're just that tight. And it all started here with Return of the Jedi,
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of you for everything that you do, and that it took you damn near 30 years of rocking out to finally, screw something up, and you still finished. And that's just, and we were texting about that too. And you're like, how could I not? I owe too much to the people I do this with and the audience I perform for, and that just shows the kind of guy you are.
Yep.
So yeah. We owe a lot to this movie, and I love you very much, brother.
Yeah, I love you too, brother. You said it all. Like, we owe so much to this movie. Like, this is kind of like the flashpoint for like the start of our relationship. I guess is it's really the easiest way to phrase it. Like, this is where you and I started. Obviously we had the blood relationship and all that, and I told you about Star Wars and how great it is, and we're sharing my action figures and the toys and stuff up until that point. But man, Strongsville Cinema, late May of 1983, we're in that theater together, and just holy shit, like, and here we are. So man,
Yep.
I love you, man, and what a blast. Like, never would have thought it would have gotten this far. Like, we got a podcast and all this crazy Star Wars nerdiness that we've been through, and all the celebrations, and my goodness, man, I love you so much, dude, and God, what a blast. So,
Yep.
well, on that
Let's do
note,
it some more.
yeah, I think we could do a few more shows. What do you think?
Just a couple, yeah.
So, all right, well, before we get out of here, you said that you had something that you wanted to close with. So, should I do the outro and then
Oh,
you
yeah.
do your...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just
All right.
make sure everybody sticks around. I got a video to share.
All right. So AJ's going to share a video, but I'm going to do the normal outro, but it's not the technical outro because the show's not over. Okay, so thank you for tuning into another episode of the Nerf Herder Council. Once again, we are brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audible.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audio book download. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to click that like button, click that subscribe button, and smash that notification bell so that you are notified every time we go live. Don't forget that you can get your own customizable Nerf Herder Council swag at shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. Guys, we will be right back here 2 weeks from tonight, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be some day in June. I can't wait to see what AJ's going to do because I don't know what the date is. I'm now all of a sudden nervous as to what the hell you're going to pull up. So we'll see you guys 2 weeks from tonight, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Love you guys. Thank you so much to all you guys in the chat. Kim McLeish, Mimar, Nick Hartley, Discuss Metal Joe, Joseph Wren. Let's just say you're Joseph Wren. Guys, you are all amazing. Thank you so much
Don't
for
forget
hanging out with
Stephanie
us.
Lynn now. Hey, Stephanie Lynn chimed in.
She's not. She's upstairs.
You
being
don't
annoyed
forget
with
your
me.
wife, man. Come on.
You think I forget my wife? She's hot. She went to a funeral today, and she was in a dress. It was kind of nice. So, condolences to my in-laws. But anyway, so I didn't know the guy. So
Jesus Christ.
I had to throw some humor into it.
Bale, get out now.
Anchorman, dump out.
Dump out.